So Dan's going to get ready to do some squat. His hands going to be evenly placed on the bar, a bit further away than shoulder width. His feet are going to stay partially together with the feet pointing a little bit outwards. So he's going to get ready to do the squat. He's going to rack the bar on the back of his shoulders and he's going to get ready. With the joints that are moving angle, the primary muscle mover of the hip joint will be the gluteus maximus and the hamstrings, and the PMM of the knee joint will be the quadriceps. Damn, that's a good squat, boy. So now Dan's doing some squats. The joints that are moving through the motion are the hip joint and the knee joint. Through the lowering phase, the hip joint and the knee joint are performing flexion, and through the lifting phase, they're both performing extension. Make sure that the bar's a little bit straighter. Yeah, there you go. Through the lowering phase, which is the eccentric phase, the participant should inhale, and on the lifting, the concentric, he should exhale. So now Dan's getting ready to do a front squat. He's going to place his feet parallel to each other, about shoulder width apart. Pretty good. He's going to place his hand evenly on the bar. And for a front squat, you want the bar right in front across your chest. So the main idea is to keep your elbows horizontal. So your elbow should be pointing forward. In this case, there's a lack of flexibility in Dan's elbow to go forward. So he's going to rack up the bar again. And he's going to cross his arms. He's going to place it right in front of that deltoid, and he's going to lift and get ready to go. That's the second option. So now Dan is doing some front squats. The joints that are moving through the motion are the hip joint and the knee joint. In the lowering phase, the hip joints perform flexion and the knee joints perform flexion. During the lifting phase, they're both performing extension. So the primary muscle mover of the hip is the glute max and the hamstrings, and there is a greater emphasis on your knee primary muscle mover, which are the quads. In the eccentric phase, which is the lowering phase, the participant should inhale, and on the concentric phase, the lifting, he should exhale. Boom. So now Dan's performing some box squats. His feet are going to stay shoulder width, a little bit out-toed, just feeling comfortable. His hands are going to be placed very evenly on the bar. And if we go across, sit down, boy, please. Thank you. We can see that the knees are right above his ankles. Look at that. Look at that. Get up. Boom! Oh man. So now Dan is performing some box squats. It's going directly up and down. So the joints that are moving through are the hip joint and the knee joint. Through the lowering phase, they're both performing flexion. Through the lifting phase, they're both performing extension. The primary muscle mover of the hip joint is the gluteus max and the hamstrings. The primary muscle mover of the knee joint are the quadriceps, and through the concentric phase, which is lifting, the participant should exhale, and through the eccentric phase, which is the lowering phase, he should inhale. Avoid the knees buckling inwards, as it can cause discomfort as well as bad technique. So make sure you feel like you're splitting the floor, pushing your knees away. So now Dan's getting ready to do a split squat. So for the setup, we're going to have his feet evenly placed on the floor, a little bit out-toe. So the idea is to have them hip apart, so put your feet a little bit closer together, there you go. His hands are going to be evenly placed on the bar. And now he's going to step back, and he's going to stand there, Now he's going to take the biggest step that he can backwards. So he's going to take a step back and then lift up, and that's your setup for a split squat. Okay, so now that Dan's doing a split squat, we're going to separate the joints that are moving through front leg and back leg. So now if we specify the front leg, the joints that are performing action are the knee joint and the hip joint, which the joint flexion. The PMM of each respectively are the quadriceps, the gluteus max, and the hamstrings. And on the lowering phase, there is an eccentric contraction and the participant should inhale. For the back leg, the only joint that is moving and is performing action is the knee joint, which is doing flexion. The PMM of the knee joint are the quads, and in the lowering phase, again, there's eccentric contraction and the participant should inhale. And in the opposite, in the lifting phase, both the joints are performing extension and the participant is going through a concentric contraction, so he should exhale. So for a good setup for the deadlift, we need feet evenly apart on the ground. Yeah, so now that was Andrew, thank you very much. So right now Dan's going to flex his hips, then he's going to bend his knees, keeping it erect back and facing forward. Ready for lift. Ba boom. Yep. So through the motion of deadlifts, in the lifting phase, the knee joints are performing extension and the hip joint are performing extension as well. The PMM of the knee joints are the quads, and from the hip joints are the gluteus maximus and the hamstrings. So the lifting phase is the concentric phase, which the participant should exhale, and in the lowering, the joints are performing flexion, and it should be an eccentric contraction where the participant should inhale. Exaggerate your breathing, please. There you go. For a good deadlift to be done, the bar should stay as close as possible to your shins, like you're paint rolling all the posterior anterior side of your legs. We can see how the participant's suffering. Yeah, he's getting big. We're getting gains. Yes. For the setup of RDLs, his feet are going to stay parallel to each other. A little bit out towards the spine. His hands are going to be placed evenly on the bar, a bit further away from the shoulders. Keeping it straight back and pushing up, he's going to lift up and get ready for the position. For the RDLs, we need the knees to be in a soft position but tight, so they will not move from there.
You don't need to touch the floor, do you?
No. You only go to like mid-shins. Yep, perfect. So for the RDLs, the joints that are moving through the motion are the hip joint, which is performing flexion on the lowering phase and extension on the lifting phase. The primary muscle mover is the gluteus max and the hamstrings. Yeah. And on the lowering, which is the eccentric phase, the participant should inhale, and on the lifting, yeah, should exhale, which is the concentric phase. Yeah. Get up there! Yep. So first, the participant will locate himself in the machine. The ball of the foot has to be placed at the back of the board, as so. Hips should be slightly rotated inwards so the gluteus maximus can contract and engage and the hip joint can be locked. The vertebrae should be straight at all times, trying to reach to the roof of the top of the skull and standing as tall as possible. Scapula should be slightly retracted and depressed for better position. Great. Through this exercise, the joints that are moving are only the knee joints. Through the lifting phase, they're performing extension, and through the lowering phase, they're performing flexion, while the participant gets back to neutral position. The primary muscle mover are the hamstrings, and through the lifting phase, there is a concentric, so the participant should exhale at that point. When it comes back towards the lowering phase and the knees are performing flexion, there is also an eccentric contraction, so the participant should inhale. Fantastic! The hip of the vertebrae play an important role in maintaining the spine contracted. The isometric contraction of the gluteus maximus and erector spinae. Yeah.
Are you ready to rumble? Now introducing Felipe. Place right knee and the right hand on the bench. Please. Keep an erect back. Head is neutral. Weight is placed on the left hand, hanging. During the lifting phase, the shoulder joint is performing extension, while the elbow joint performs flexion. The shoulder joint primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. The primary muscle mover of the elbow joint is the bicep. During the lowering phase, the shoulder joint performs flexion, while the elbow joint performs extension. The primary muscle movers are the same: shoulder joint, latissimus dorsi, while the elbow is still the bicep. Lowering is eccentric, while lifting is exhale. Yeah. Place your feet shoulder width apart. Keep your toes at a comfortable, parallel, or slightly outward position. Evenly place your hands on the barbell. Lift the barbell and move backwards. Flex your hips and bend your knees forward. Keep an erect back. That is your starting position. Go. The joints that are moving through the lowering phase and lifting phase of the bent over barbell row are the elbow joints and shoulder joints. The primary muscle movers in the elbow joint are the biceps and deltoids. The primary muscle movers in the shoulder joint is the latissimus dorsi and the deltoids. Start by flexing your hips and pushing them back as you flex your knees, thinking you are going to sit in a small chair. The first phase will bring your muscles into an eccentric contraction, where the muscles will be lengthened, which is where the participant can inhale air to prepare the muscles to fire back up and contract. Thank you. For this exercise, you're gonna have to get on the ground now. Place your feet on the edge of the bench. Thank you. Keep your core strong and your glutes strong too, Superman style. During the pull, it's concentric. You shall be exhaling through the lengthening eccentric, where you should be inhaling so you do not die. That is how you perform this exercise. The joints moving throughout this exercise is the shoulder joint and elbow joint. Through the lifting phase, the shoulder joint performs extension, while the elbow joint performs flexion. Through the lowering phase, the shoulder joint performs flexion, while the elbow joint performs extension. The joints moving throughout this exercise is the shoulder joint and elbow joint. The shoulder joint performs extension while the elbow joint performs flexion. Throughout the lowering phase, the shoulder joint performs extension while the elbow joint performs flexion. Throughout the lifting phase, the shoulder joint performs flexion while the elbow joint performs extension. Throughout the lifting phase, the participant should breathe out, which is a concentric contraction. Throughout the lifting phase, the participant should be performing concentric contractions and should be exhaling forcefully. Throughout the lowering phase, the participant should be performing eccentric contractions and should be inhaling like crazy. Place hands evenly on the bar, back side of the bar. Supinated. Keep back erect and head is neutral. The joints moving throughout this exercise is the shoulder joint and elbow joint. The primary muscle movers of the shoulder joint is the latissimus dorsi, while the elbow joint, primary muscle mover, is the bicep. Throughout the lifting phase, the shoulder joint performs extension, while the elbow joint performs flexion. Through the lowering phase, the shoulder joint performs flexion, while the elbow joint performs extension. Through the lifting phase, the participant should be performing concentric contractions and should be exhaling forcefully. Through the lowering phase, the participant should be performing eccentric contractions and should be inhaling. Lay on bench. Feet planted on the floor, parallel. Back is straight, not hyperextended. 3 points must be touching the bench at all times. The sacrum, the thoracic, and the back of the skull. Place hands about a little bit one shoulder width apart. Your thumb should be wrapped around the bar, locked in place, so do not lose the bar. Bar should be directly above your eyes when lifting. The joints moving throughout this exercise is the elbow joint and the shoulder joint. The primary muscle mover of the elbow joint is the triceps, while the shoulder joint is the pectoralis major. During the lifting phase, the bar should travel directly above your chest. During the lowering phase, you should come around just your nipple line. Through the lowering phase, the participant should be performing eccentric contractions, which they should be inhaling. Through the lifting phase, the participant should be performing concentric contractions and should be exhaling. Feet planted parallel to each other. You lay down on back on the bench. 3 points that must stay in contact with the bench at all times is your sacrum, your thoracic vertebrae, and the back of your skull. Move the weights above your chest. Elbows soft, but not locked, but tight. Just like that. The joints moving throughout this exercise is the shoulder joint. The primary muscle mover of the shoulder joint is the pectoralis major. The elbow joint does not change angles because it is a soft bend and a tight position. The participant must move through eccentric contractions when lowering, which they should be inhaling. For the lifting, they must be performing concentric contractions and shall be exhaling.
Yeah.